You actually sent her an invitation? Victoria Ashworth stared at her fiancé in disbelief, holding the elegant wedding invitation that had just been returned from the printer. They were getting married in 2 weeks at the exclusive Rosewood Country Club, and apparently, Michael had invited his ex-wife. His black ex-wife. His poor black ex-wife who had supposedly trapped him into marriage and ruined the first 10 years of his adult life. Michael Richardson smiled cruelly as he adjusted his Rolex. Oh yes, I wouldn't miss having Keisha there for anything. But why? Victoria asked, genuinely confused. Why would you want her at our wedding? Michael walked to the window of his corner office, looking out at the city skyline he now partially owned through his real estate empire. At 45, he was worth over $50 million, owned 3 companies, and was about to marry Victoria Ashworth. Blonde, beautiful, from the right family, and everything his first wife hadn't been. Because, he said slowly, savoring every word, I want Keisha to see exactly what she lost. I want her to see what her life could have been if she hadn't been so difficult. Victoria frowned. Difficult how? She had no class, Victoria. No understanding of how to move in our circles. She was loud, opinionated, always questioning my decisions. She didn't know how to dress, how to speak to important people, how to be the kind of wife a successful man needs. So you divorced her. Best decision I ever made, Michael replied smugly. And now I want her to see the life I built without her. I want her to see you beautiful, sophisticated, appropriate. I want her to see our mansion, our cars, our lifestyle. You want to humiliate her. I want her to understand what she gave up when she chose to fight me instead of support me. Victoria felt uncomfortable with the whole idea, but she'd learned not to question Michael's decisions. He was successful, powerful, and knew how to get what he wanted. If he wanted his ex-wife at their wedding to prove a point, then that's what would happen. What Michael didn't tell Victoria was the rest of the story. He'd married Keisha Williams when they were both 25. She was a nursing student, beautiful and brilliant, working 2 jobs to pay for school. Michael was just starting his first business, struggling to get investors, barely keeping his head above water financially. Keisha had supported him through everything. She'd worked double shifts to help pay their rent. She'd cooked his meals, cleaned their tiny apartment, and listened to him vent about his failures and frustrations. She'd believed in him when no one else did. But as Michael's business started to succeed, he began to see Keisha differently. At business dinners, she didn't wear the right clothes or say the right things. She asked questions that made him uncomfortable, questions about his ethics, his treatment of employees, his increasingly ruthless business practices. When Michael started making real money, he wanted to celebrate by buying expensive things and moving in elite social circles. Keisha wanted him to remember where they came from, to give back to their community, to stay grounded. You're changing, Michael, she'd told him during one of their many fights. Success is making you someone I don't recognize. Success is making me someone who matters, he'd shot back. Someone who can provide the kind of life we've always dreamed about. I never dreamed about a life where we looked down on other people. I never dreamed about a life where money was more important than character. The fights got worse. Michael resented Keisha's lectures about morality and social responsibility. Keisha resented Michael's transformation into someone who cared more about status than substance. When Michael filed for divorce after 8 years of marriage, he made sure Keisha got as little as possible. He hid assets, used expensive lawyers, and dragged the proceedings out until Keisha couldn't afford to fight anymore. She'd walked away with almost nothing, just like Michael wanted. That was 12 years ago. Now Michael was rich, powerful, and about to marry the perfect trophy wife, and he wanted Keisha to witness his triumph. The invitation arrived at Keisha's apartment on a Tuesday morning. Dr. Keisha Williams. She'd finished her nursing degree and then gone on to medical school. stared at the elegant cardstock with a mixture of amusement and disgust. "Are you serious?" she said aloud to her empty kitchen. Her phone rang. It was her best friend Maya. "Girl, please tell me you're not actually considering going to that man's wedding," Maya said without preamble. "How did you?" "Because I got invited too. Apparently, Michael wants all his old friends there to witness his triumph. The man has completely lost his mind." Keisha laughed bitterly. "He wants to humiliate me. He wants me to see his big house and his perfect wife and feel bad about my choices. So you're not going, right?" Keisha was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Actually," she said slowly, "I think I am going to go."
Keisha, no.
"Don't give him the satisfaction." "Oh, I'm not going to give him satisfaction," Keisha replied with a smile Maya couldn't see but could definitely hear in her voice. "I'm going to give him something else entirely." The day of Michael's wedding was perfect, sunny, 75 degrees, with a light breeze that kept the outdoor ceremony comfortable. The Rosewood Country Club was decorated with thousands of white roses and gold accents. Everything was exactly as expensive and ostentatious as Michael had wanted. The guest list was a who's who of the city's elite. Politicians, business leaders, society figures, and old money families. Michael stood at the altar in his custom-made tuxedo, watching his carefully curated audience take their seats. Victoria looked stunning in her designer wedding gown, every inch the perfect bride for a man of his status. Michael kept checking his watch. The ceremony was about to start, and Keisha hadn't arrived yet. For a moment, he worried that she wouldn't show, that she'd deny him the pleasure of showing off his success. Then he heard the murmur ripple through the crowd. A black Rolls-Royce had pulled up to the country club's entrance. Michael smiled. Keisha had probably rented it for the day, trying to put on airs. How pathetic. How typical. But then the chauffeur got out and opened the rear door with the kind of deference reserved for very important people. And Keisha stepped out. Michael's smile faltered. This wasn't the Keisha he remembered. This wasn't the struggling nursing student he'd divorced 12 years ago. The woman walking toward the ceremony was absolutely stunning. She wore a sophisticated navy blue dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. Her hair was styled perfectly, her makeup flawless, her jewelry understated but clearly expensive. But it wasn't just her appearance that commanded attention. It was her presence. Keisha Williams walked with the confidence of someone who belonged anywhere she chose to be. She smiled graciously at people she recognized, shook hands warmly with those she didn't, and moved through the crowd like she owned the place. "Who is that?" Michael heard someone whisper. "That's Dr. Keisha Williams," someone else replied. "You know, the cardiac surgeon? She just opened that new medical center downtown. The one that's providing free health care to underserved communities? That's her. She's amazing. I heard she turned down offers from hospitals in New York and Los Angeles to stay here and help people." Michael felt his world tilting sideways. Cardiac surgeon? Medical center? As Keisha took her seat in the back row, Michael caught sight of her left hand. She was wearing a wedding ring, a very expensive wedding ring. "Michael," the officiant whispered, "are you ready to begin?" Michael nodded numbly, his eyes still fixed on Keisha, who was now chatting quietly with Maya and seemed completely comfortable and confident. The ceremony proceeded, but Michael found himself distracted, stealing glances at his ex-wife throughout the vows. She looked successful, happy, fulfilled, nothing like the broken, defeated woman he'd expected. After the ceremony, during the cocktail hour, Michael watched in growing dismay as Keisha became the center of attention. "Dr. Williams." City Councilman Roberts approached her with obvious respect. "I've been hoping to meet you. Your medical center is exactly what this city needs." "Thank you, Councilman. We're just getting started. Our goal is to eliminate healthcare deserts in underserved communities. And I understand you're funding much of it yourself?" Keisha smiled modestly. I've been blessed with success. Feels good to give back. Michael felt sick. Blessed with success? What success? She'd left their marriage with nothing. Excuse me. A young woman approached Keisha nervously. Dr. Williams? You probably don't remember me, but you operated on my grandmother last year. Mrs. Patterson? You saved her life. Keisha's face lit up. Of course I remember Mrs. Patterson. How is she doing? She's doing wonderfully, thanks to you. She talks about you all the time. She says you're an angel. As the conversation continued, Michael noticed something else. Important people were seeking Keisha out, not the other way around. She wasn't trying to impress anyone or prove anything. She was just respected, genuinely respected. Michael? Victoria appeared at his elbow. Who is that woman everyone's talking to? My ex-wife, Michael said numbly. Your ex-wife is a cardiac surgeon? Apparently. Victoria looked confused. But you said she was poor. You said she was working as a waitress or something. She was a nursing student when we divorced, Michael replied, not taking his eyes off Keisha. Well, she's certainly not a nursing student now, Victoria observed. Do you see that ring she's wearing? That's at least a 5-carat diamond. Michael had seen it. He'd been trying not to think about what it meant. As if summoned by their conversation, a man approached Keisha from across the room. He was tall, distinguished-looking, probably in his early 50s. When he reached Keisha, he kissed her cheek affectionately and handed her a glass of champagne. Michael watched in horror as Keisha introduced the man to the group she'd been talking with. Everyone, I'd like you to meet my husband, Dr. James Chun. James, this is Councilman Roberts and husband, Dr. James Chun. Michael knew that name. Dr. James Chun was the head of cardiovascular surgery at the city's most prestigious hospital. He was also one of the wealthiest doctors in the state. Oh my God, Victoria breathed. Is that Dr. Chin? From Metropolitan Hospital. Michael couldn't speak. Michael, your ex-wife is married to Dr. James Chen? Do you know how successful he is? How respected? They're like medical royalty. As the reception continued, Michael learned more details that made him feel progressively sicker. Keisha had finished her nursing degree, then gone to medical school, then completed a rigorous surgery residency. She'd met James during her fellowship, and they'd been married for 5 years. Together, they owned a medical practice worth tens of millions of dollars. They lived in a mansion that made Michael's house look like a starter home. They traveled the world providing medical care to underserved populations. And they were beloved in their community for their philanthropy and dedication to helping others. She's everything you said she wasn't, Victoria said quietly during a rare moment when they were alone. What do you mean? You said she was loud and opinionated, but I've been watching her all evening. She's poised and gracious. You said she didn't know how to move in elite circles, but everyone here respects her. You said she had no class, but she's the classiest woman at this party. Michael felt his carefully constructed narrative crumbling. You said she was holding you back, Victoria continued. But it looks like maybe you were holding her back. The words hit Michael like physical blows. Excuse me. A voice interrupted their conversation. Michael. Michael turned to find Keisha standing behind him, smiling politely. Up close, she was even more stunning. Her skin glowed with health and happiness. Her eyes sparkled with intelligence and warmth. She looked like a woman who was living her best life. Hello, Keisha, Michael managed. Congratulations on your wedding, she said graciously. Victoria, you look absolutely beautiful. That dress is stunning. Thank you, Victoria replied, clearly flustered by Keisha's kindness. I wanted to thank you, Michael, Keisha continued, for inviting me today. You're thanking me? Of course. It's been wonderful catching up with old friends. And it's nice to see you happy and successful. Michael stared at her. Keisha, I need to ask you something. Sure. How? How did you build all this? He gestured vaguely at her dress, her jewelry, the obvious indicators of success. Keisha smiled sadly. The same way I always did things, Michael. Hard work, determination, and keeping my priorities straight. But you left our marriage with nothing. I left our marriage with my integrity intact, she corrected gently. That turned out to be worth more than I realized at the time. I don't understand. Michael, do you remember what we used to fight about? Michael was quiet. We fought because I wanted you to remember where you came from. I wanted you to use your success to help others, not just to accumulate more wealth and status. I wanted you to value character over connections. And when I left you, I promised myself I would never compromise those values again. So when I became successful, I used my success the way I'd always believed it should be used, to make the world better. She paused, looking at him with something that might have been pity. The medical center I opened? It serves the neighborhood where we used to live, Michael. The neighborhood you couldn't wait to leave behind. Those people you were ashamed to be associated with, they're my patients now. And helping them has brought me more joy than all the money in the world. Michael felt tears forming in his eyes. James and I met when we were both volunteering at a free clinic, Keisha continued. He fell in love with me not because of how I looked or what I could do for his career, but because of my commitment to service. Because I valued the same things he did. Keisha, I need to go, she said kindly. We have an early surgery tomorrow morning. A young mother who needs a heart transplant. Pro bono, of course. She started to walk away, then turned back. Michael, I hope you find happiness. Real happiness. The kind that comes from being proud of who you are, not just what you own. As Keisha walked away, rejoining her husband and their circle of friends, Michael felt the weight of his choices settling on his shoulders. He'd invited Keisha to humiliate her, to show her what she'd lost. Instead, she'd shown him what he'd lost. He'd lost a woman who could have been his partner in building something meaningful. He'd lost the chance to use his success to make a difference. He'd lost the opportunity to be part of something bigger than himself. Michael, Victoria said quietly, I think we need to talk. But Michael wasn't listening. He was watching Keisha laugh at something her husband said, watching the way she lit up when she talked to people, watching the respect and admiration in everyone's eyes when they looked at her. 12 years ago, he'd thought he was trading up when he left Keisha for a chance at the life he thought he deserved. Now he realized he'd traded everything that mattered for everything that didn't. Keisha had built a life of purpose, meaning, and genuine love. Michael had built a life of wealth, status, and shallow connections. Looking around at his expensive wedding, his trophy wife, his impressive guest list, Michael finally understood what Keisha had been trying to tell him all those years ago. Success without character is just expensive emptiness. And all the money in the world can't buy back the love of a good woman who saw your potential and believed in your better angels. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Michael watched Keisha and James say their goodbyes. They moved through the crowd like beloved members of the community, receiving warm hugs and genuine affection from people who clearly saw them as more than just wealthy guests. Before leaving, Keisha approached Michael one last time. Thank you again for including me, she said. It really was good to see you. Keisha, Michael said desperately, I need you to know. I'm sorry. For everything. For how I treated you. For how things ended. For... Michael, she interrupted gently. That was a long time ago. We were different people then. I've forgiven you, and I hope you can forgive yourself. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had been different? If I had been different? Keisha considered the question seriously. I think everything happened exactly as it was supposed to. she said finally. You needed to find your path and I needed to find mine. We both ended up where we were meant to be. Even though I hurt you, especially because you hurt me, that pain taught me what I wouldn't accept in a relationship. It taught me to value myself enough to demand better. It led me to James, to my career, to the life I have now. She smiled at him with genuine warmth. I'm grateful for our time together, Michael. All of it. Even the painful parts. They made me who I am. With that, she turned and walked away, her arm linked with her husband's, leaving Michael standing alone at his own wedding reception, finally understanding the true cost of the choices he'd made. The wedding that was supposed to be his moment of triumph had become his moment of reckoning. And the woman he'd invited to humiliate had instead shown him the man he could have been, if only he'd been brave enough to choose love over status, character over wealth, and partnership over domination. Some lessons come too late to change anything, but they still come, carrying the weight of what might have been and the bitter taste of choices that can never be undone. As Michael Richardson stood in the ruins of his moment of supposed victory, he finally understood what his ex-wife had always known. The only triumph that matters is the triumph of becoming the person you were meant to be. And by that measure, Keisha had won everything, while he had lost it all. What did you think of this story? Have you ever encountered someone from your past who showed you how much you'd changed, for better or worse? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please share it with others who might need to hear this message about character, success, and what really matters in life.